Welcome everyone to Whimsy Woven Stories. Here, we explore gripping tales of real-life twists. Join our storytelling community.
I am Colton, 38 male. I'm sitting in my study, which now feels less like study and more like a very expensive tomb of poor decisions. The minimalist decor I once prided myself on suddenly feels like a parody of itself. Clean lines, open space, no clutter, no warmth. Echo chamber for my own stupidity. 3 weeks ago, my 10-year marriage was pronounced dead. No wake, no flowers. Just a sharp legal scalpel and an ego hemorrhage. The diagnosis was delivered by my wife, Quinn, 35, attractive, calculating, and currently starring in her own one-woman stage play titled The Martyrdom of Me. Of course, I had to sign the death certificate. She sat me down in the living room, her arena, if you will, a tastefully soulless space decorated in shades of expensive, but the kind of place that looks like a furniture catalog threw up and then hired a lighting consultant to cover its tracks. Our golden retriever, Gordon, was snoozing peacefully at her feet, blissfully unaware that he was about to be weaponized in emotional warfare. When had on the face, the one I'd seen many times over the years. It preceded big ticket requests, diamond earrings, designer handbags. That time she insisted Fiji was spiritually necessary. Her voice quivered like she was auditioning for a role she wrote herself. Colton, she began, voice trembling with the sincerity of a politician on camera. I'm not happy. I feel like I've lost myself in this marriage. Yes, the classic, the daytime TV monologue. The beautiful wife, crushed under the unbearable weight of her husband's success and the strain of living in a mortgage-free house with no job. She needed, naturally, to embark on a journey of self-discovery. I waited because I knew the real message had already arrived. A thick manila envelope from a law firm I didn't recognize had been couriered to my office the day before. I'd opened it, of course. I'm not an idiot. Well, not anymore. Her demands were imaginative. She wanted the house. She wanted the brand new luxury SUV I had just bought her. Custom interior, of course. She wanted sole custody of Gordon. And this is the kicker. She wanted a 7-figure alimony payment for her emotional distress and career sacrifices. This from a woman who voluntarily exited the workforce a decade ago and spent her days curating Pinterest boards and rearranging furniture no one sat on. I let her performance run its course, watched her dab at a tear that had no moisture. She deserved at least that much. When she finished, I just looked at her. I didn't shout, didn't plead, didn't throw anything. Instead, I pointed to the envelope on the coffee table. Is that all? I asked, my voice quieter than I intended, but lined with more sarcasm than a late-night monologue. Quinn blinked, momentarily thrown off script. I think it's a fair starting point for our discussion. She said it like she was offering me a coupon, not a financial colonoscopy. A starting point. I repeated, nodding slowly. Okay, that's when I slid a different envelope across the polished wood of the table. It was older, from my personal safe. What's this? Quinn asked, her voice teetering between curiosity and the early stages of a panic. There was a flicker of genuine confusion in her eyes, rare, considering how often she rehearsed her expressions in front of the bathroom mirror. You know what it is, I said, keeping my tone flat and calm, like a waiter delivering the check after a terrible meal. Her hands were steady, annoyingly steady, as she opened the envelope. For someone who had just tried to rob me blind in a monologue about finding herself, she was pretty composed. But then I saw it the moment her eyes hit the heading on the document. Prenuptial agreement. I watched her face do a full interpretive dance of emotion, confusion, recognition, and then the slow, dawning horror that lands in the pit of your stomach like bad sushi. This is she breathed, her voice trailing off as her eyes kept scanning faster now, like if she read it quickly enough, it would disappear. Yes, this was the infamous document, the one that 5 years ago had led to a massive Oscar-worthy meltdown in our kitchen. She'd called it a monument to my distrust, an insult to our love. Then, in a fit of righteous fury, she grabbed the copy I'd foolishly left on my desk, declared it dead, and ripped it to shreds with all the melodrama of telenovela heroine. This means nothing. She'd sobbed back then, mascara streaking like war paint. Our love is the only contract we need. A young stupidity. Mine specifically. Promise me you'll never hold this over my head, Colton. She cried, clutching the shredded pieces like a tragic Shakespearean widow. Promise me this piece of paper is dead. And like a moron desperate to end the fight and maybe go to bed in peace, I Said, okay, Quinn, it's dead. She thought. That was it. That her tears, her theatrics, and the symbolic shredding of an unofficial copy had somehow invalidated a legal agreement she believed, truly believed that she had emotionally manipulated me into surrendering our one financial safeguard. She considered it a victory, a testament to her power in the relationship. Well, she was wrong. I never destroy important documents ever. Not even when she made me get rid of my baseball cards because they were clashing with the aesthetic. The signed notarized original tucked away in my safe deposit box, a second certified copy with my lawyer, what she had torn to shreds, a glorified napkin. Why, I've just given her now sliding across the table like the final card in a losing hand was a pristine copy of our legally binding reality. This we agreed this was void, she whispered, her complexion suddenly matching the living room's expensive beige. Bloodless. No, Quinn, I said, voice soft but sharp enough to cut crystal. You put on a show. I'll let you believe you'd won. But you don't void a legal contract with tears and a tantrum. I leaned back in the chair, watching her try to process the implications, try and fail. This document is very much alive, I said, and it clearly states that separate property remains separate. That means my house remains my house. My investments remain my investments. Her mouth opened, then closed, like a fish, a furious cornered fish in designer loungewear. It outlines a modest short-term alimony payment. I added, if the marriage lasts 10 years, which it has barely, but nothing close to what you're demanding. And I said with a smile so feigned it probably registered as smug, it says nothing about the dog. The silence that followed was thick, absolute, the kind of silence that makes you suddenly aware of how loudly your dog snores. Gordon let out a gentle snuffle at Quinn's feet, utterly unbothered, possibly dreaming about bacon or squirrels, not the impending custody battle he was unknowingly starring in. The mask fell. Then her carefully painted on expression of heartbreak replaced with something far more honest. Fury, cold, hard, expensive fury. You'll regret this, she seethed, her voice stripped of all credence. I regret not trusting my gut 10 years ago, I replied coolly, this is just business. Her lawyer, a man named Stephen, who I can only assume bought his degree from the same place that sells novelty diplomas and unicorn farts, has been calling my lawyer, Ron Jeremy, incessantly. And yes, before you ask, that is his real name. No relation to the other Ron Jeremy, though the resemblance, in terms of sheer aggression and theatrical flair, is uncanny. Stephen wants to revisit the terms. Apparently, they're now open to negotiation. Ron, who moonlights as a DJ, possibly a professional hitman, and probably eats depositions with his protein shake, finds this hilarious. He started replying to Stephen's increasingly dramatic emails by sending nothing but a high-res scan of the signature page of the prenup. No message, no greeting, just the cold, hard truth in 300 dpi. I think he's printed it on glossy photo paper at least once just for flair. See, Quinn made a critical error in judgment. She thought I was just another workaholic husband, a distracted man. She could play it with a pretty smile while quietly assembling her golden parachute behind the scenes. She thought I'd be too buried in meetings and code to notice the warning signs. She forgot who I am. I build complex systems for a living. Redundancy, risk assessment, failure anticipation, these are not abstract concepts to me. They are daily tools. And her loyalty, that was the greatest single point of failure in my life's architecture. Well, the system is now correcting itself. 2 months later, ever since this whole circus began, and it devolved from a clean break to a low-budget psychological thriller, the kind that skips theatrical release and goes straight to the people you may know section of your social media feed. The entitlement's still jaw-dropping, but now it's been paired with a legal strategy that's surprisingly crafty. Doomed, yes, but crafty, since they finally realized they can't just pretend the prenup doesn't exist. Thanks, glossy scan, Quinn and Stephen have pivoted to claiming it's unconscionable. Their argument that circumstances have changed so drastically over 10 years that enforcing the original terms would now be grossly unfair. In other words, being cast as a fire-breathing dragon, hoarding my gold while poor, delicate Quinn, barefoot and betrayed, limps through life with nothing but memories and designer heels, their primary weapon. In this strategy, a full-blown smear campaign, I'm now the villain of our formerly shared social circle, painted as some Machiavellian control freak who's leaving his innocent wife destitute after she supported my career. The delusion is impressive. I got a call from Kevin, a guy I've known since college once. Considered a friend, now apparently a reluctant emissary of gossip. He sounded deeply uncomfortable, like someone who'd just been asked to officiate a wedding between two cats in heat. "Hey man," he said. "Donna told me what's going on." Said, "You're being really controlling, like trying to leave Quinn with nothing. After she supported your career all these years." "Supported my career?" I asked, genuinely baffled. "Kevin, she hasn't worked since we met. What support are we talking about? Them X bills for her shopping sprees." He didn't answer right away. I let that sit for a beat, then added, "When was the last time Quinn asked you about your kids or your wife's new job?" There was a long pause, so long I could practically hear the gears grinding behind his forehead. "You know," he said slowly, "I can't remember exactly. That's Quinn in a nutshell. Social black hole. Take. No, give. People orbit her like she's the sun until one day they realize they're just burnt toast with a side of buyer's remorse. And a few of them, they're finally starting to figure that out now that the parties and free dinners have stopped. The affair, which I suspected, became a confirmed fact shortly before she delivered her "I'm not happy" soliloquy. It wasn't some long-standing 6-month secret I'd been quietly stewing over while journaling in candlelight. No, the suspicion started around New Year's. Suddenly, Quinn had discovered fitness. This was a woman who once referred to sweat as a symptom of poor life choices, and yet now she was spending hours at a transformational wellness sanctuary that charged more per month than some people's mortgages. And it wasn't just the gym. Her phone became surgically attached to her hand. She'd laugh at text and then hide the screen like a teenager guarding nudes. It didn't take a genius to connect the Lilielman draped dots. But I'm not the jealous, fly-off-the-handle type. I'm methodical. So I hired a private investigator, a professional, discreet, ex-military type who could probably take down a target with a gym towel. 1 week before her heartfelt breakup monologue, he delivered the report, complete with timestamped photos of Quinn and her personal trainer Joshua doing stretching in ways that were definitely not listed on the class schedule. The timing was almost poetic. My fresh, simmering anger made it very easy to stay calm during her performance. I let her walk right into the trap like an actress on opening night, full of dramatic pauses and faux emotion. That report, it's now Ron Jeremy's favorite coffee table book. He reads it like a man who's finally found literature worth highlighting. Then came the financial games. Now I'm meticulous, not paranoid, not controlling, just thorough. When we separated, I canceled all of her primary credit cards. All of them, or so I thought. Turns out I missed one. A store card to her favorite high-end department store, one that practically rolled out a red carpet every time she walked in. It wasn't linked to my main banking app. Small oversight on my part, a rare one. I got an email notification one morning, charged for $8,200 on a single handbag. Let me repeat that. One handbag for the price of a used sedan. I immediately called the store's fraud department, reported the card stolen, marked the exact date of our legal separation. The charge was reversed without a hiccup. Legally airtight. Post-separation debt is her own. Her shopping spree had just been legally reclassified as identity theft with sequence. Cue or text message. Incandescent with rage. "Quinn, how dare you humiliate me? That purchase was already approved. You are a petty, cruel man." I replied with a screenshot of the prenup clause on separate finances and a link to the definition of post-separation debt. Me, definitions are your friend. But the biggest battle isn't the affair. We're the money. It's the house. To avoid the drama and the temptation to staple legal documents to her forehead, I've been staying in my corporate apartment. I even gave her a 60-day grace period to find a new place. Thought it was reasonable, generous even. That was a mistake because somewhere in the delusional back alleys of her logic, Quinn decided to interpret my absence as me ceding the property. 2 weeks ago, I had Ron Jeremy, legal assassin, part-time, DJ, full-time shark, sent Quinn a formal notice to vacate the premises. No frills, no fluff, just direct legal language and the warm courtesy of a 30-day deadline. She ignored it. Of course she did. So, last week, I went over to the house, my house, a place I had paid off in full, before she ever sauntered in with her Pinterest boards and feng shui crystals. And there she was, sitting in the living room with Joshua, the personal trainer, turned boyfriend, turned squatter, drinking my best scotch, the 18-year Single moth I had been saving for an actual occasion, not a budget remake of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, featuring Lululemon and Jim Broken. I didn't say a word to him. I didn't have to. I just looked at Quinn. The notice I sent wasn't a suggestion, I said calmly. She scoffed. A full theatrical scoff like a villainess in a Regency drama. My lawyer says I don't have to go anywhere, she said smugly. He says we're going to fight this in court. This is my home. No, I said, my voice low enough to rattle the ice in her glass. This is my house. You made it a home, and now you've unmade it. Her smile faltered. You haven't till the end of the month, I continued. Then begin formal eviction proceedings. The sheriff will remove you, Quinn. Is that the journey of self-discovery you had in mind? That's when Joshua suddenly, discovering his inner hero, decided to step up. Hey man, he said, puffing up slightly, you should show some respect. That's when I looked at him for the first time. Just turned my head and stared. Deadpan. You're trespassing, I said, flatly. Leave. He glanced at Quinn like he was hoping for backup. She said, nothing. Just looked at her drink like it. Hell the answers. Joshua took the hint. He left. Since then, the begging has begun, but it's not your average groveling. It's the kind of groveling that comes with a side of veiled threats and passive-aggressive legal letters. Stephen, her lawyer, the budget Perry, Mason, sent Ron a new letter. This one was meant to sound like a generous peace offering. They're willing, it read, to drop the unconscionability claim if I agree to give Quinn the house in a modest one-time payment of $500,000. Modest. I read that part twice just to confirm I hadn't hallucinated it out of sheer rage. They're trying to wear me down, make this process so unpleasant, so draining that I'll pay them to disappear. They don't know me at all. I don't give in to bullies. I design systems. I plan for disaster. This is trench warfare now, a war of attrition. And I have all the supplies. The summer has been long, hot, and filled with more legal skirmishes than an episode of Suits. On fast forward, Quinn's strategy, what I've come to affectionately call death by 1,000 cuts, has been in full swing. Unfortunately for her, all she's managed to do is nick her own arteries and bleed her resources dry. The eviction became official in late July. She ignored the final notice, naturally, because why not? Go full Greek tragedy when you're this committed to the role. I had to follow through. I didn't go. That wasn't accident. I sent Ron Jeremy in my place. My legal Gandalf, who handles chaos like most people handle lunch. According to him, the deputies were professional, impassive. Quinn, however, was channeling something between media and a malfunctioning car alarm. He said she was completely defiant, chin high, eyes blazing, like she was about to launch into a freedom speech, until the sheriff's deputies told her she had 5 minutes to gather her personal effects before the locks got changed. That's when the screaming started. Ron said it was biblical. I believe the phrase he used was, I felt like I was inside an exorcism, but with better lighting. All of her belongings, every last throw, pillow, curated candle, and overpriced athleisure item had already been professionally packed and moved into a top-of-the-line, climate-controlled storage unit, paid for by yours truly. 6 months of rent up front. Generous act of goodwill, I told Ron. He stared at me for a beat and replied, strategic neutralization of a potential complaint. Tomato, tomato. Then came the desperate Hail Mary, the legal equivalent of flinging herself across the courtroom floor and screaming. He hit me with emotional energy. She filed for an emergency restraining order in her affidavit. She described me as unstable, obsessive, and a physical threat. She claimed she lived in fear that I'd shown up at her home, my house, as part of an escalating pattern of harassment. But have been insulted if it weren't so. Utterly predictable. So we went to court. Stephen, her attorney and full-time drama student, gave the performance of his life. His voice trembled with full concern. His eyes welled with the kind of sincerity that usually comes free with a car dealership warranty. He painted me as some cold, calculating monster, hellbent on destroying sweet, innocent Quinn. Then it was our turn. Ron Jeremy didn't even raise his voice. He didn't need to. He submitted 3 things to the judge. That's it. First, the title deed to the house. Simple, clean, my name. No ambiguity. Second, the private investigator's report, complete with timestamp photos of Quinn playing personal trainer bingo with Joshua sworn statements included. Third, an audio recording. That last one was Ron's idea. He reminded me before my last phone call with Quinn that we live in a single party consent state, so I recorded it. In that call, she can be heard clear as crystal, screaming, "I will make your life a living hell, Colton. I will drag your name through the mud until everyone sees you for the monster you are. You'll pay me to get me out of your life. You'll see." The judge listened to the entire thing. Her expression grew colder with every word. I've seen friendlier faces on Mount Rushmore. She dismissed the restraining order with prejudice, meaning Quinn can't file it again, ever. And just to sprinkle a little extra seasoning on the roast, she gave Stephen a stern lecture about frivolous litigation and wasting the court's time. It was the legal equivalent of a public spanking. Quinn looked like she'd been slapped with a wet contract. Defeated on the legal front, she did what any emotionally mature adult would do. She doubled down on the social one. She started a blog. Survivor's Story, it was called. Apparently, surviving a mortgage-free life of luxury, weekly facials, and imported throw pillows now qualifies as a trauma narrative. The blog was Quinn's latest attempt at rebranding from pampered ex-wife to warrior goddess, rising from the ashes of a financially abusive and narcissistic marriage. It was filled with vague accusations, flowery language, and metaphors about her caged soul. I think at one point she compared me to a gold-plated prison warden and herself to a phoenix with clipped wings. Subtlety has never been her strong suit. To her credit, it gained a little traction. For about a week, some of her wine and Wi-Fi sympathizers cheered her on in the comments section, leaving supportive emojis and bad advice. I didn't respond. I didn't post a rebuttal or call her out publicly. That's not how I operate. Instead, I had Ron Jeremy send a cease and desist letter so sharp you could have shaved with it. It was polite, professional, and absolutely devastating. It cited specific, provably false statements and labeled them accurately as libel and defamation. Ron also included a gentle reminder that discovery in our divorce case was still ongoing, and that any public statements could be used as evidence of malicious intent. The blog vanished within 48 hours. The financial reality is finally hitting her. Like a tidal wave, she's been paying Stephen's legal fees out of what's left of her dwindling savings, and her favorite activity, spending money that isn't hers, has lost a bit of its sparkle. As for Joshua, the valiant personal trainer who once held her hand through Downward Dog, gone. I heard through the grapevine that he officially ended their training relationship right after the eviction. Notice was served. Apparently Quinn's journey of self-discovery didn't include a chapter titled Living in a One-Bedroom with 2 aspiring actors and a cat named Nietzsche. Her parents have started calling me. That's when I knew the tide had truly turned. The tone has shifted from indignant outrage to something that sounds suspiciously like groveling. Her mother cried on the phone, actually. Cried Colton, she sniffled. Quinn's not herself. She's making terrible mistakes. I agree, I said, but they're hers to own. Then her father, ever the booming patriarch, jumped in on the extension. But she has nothing. Colton, how is she supposed to? That's a question, I said, calmly. She should have asked herself before she handed me divorce papers based on a fantasy. And then I hung up. I feel tired, but resolved. Every dirty trick she pulls, every lie she tells just reaffirms that I made the right decision. She's not trying to find middle ground. She's trying to win a war, she declared, furious that she's losing, stunned that I haven't collapsed under the weight of her melodrama. But the thing is, I'm not even fighting back. I'm just standing still, holding up the prenup like a shield and letting her exhaust herself trying to smash through it with a yoga mat and bad legal advice. The final divorce decree came through last week. The document itself is underwhelming. Just a few cold pages of legalese that severed 10 years of my life with all the ceremony of cable bill cancellation. The house is quiet, decorated for Christmas. I'll be spending alone with Gordon, who has opinions about tinsel and no loyalty to anyone who doesn't feed him. And for the first time, that feels like a choice, not a sentence. The last few months were a slow, pathetic fizzle for Quinn. Her war chest finally ran dry. Stephen, her once proud attorney and part-time performance artist, filed a motion to withdraw as her counsel. The official reason, a breakdown in the attorney-client relationship and, more importantly, unpaid invoices. Translation, she stopped paying him, stopped listening to him, or most likely, both. She ended up with a legal aid lawyer. According to Ron Jeremy, the guy was competent, sharp, and most importantly, brutally realistic, which, for Quinn, must have felt like being slapped with a reality check dipped in lemon juice. The fight was over. Our final mediation was held over Zoom, the digital courtroom of the post-COVID apocalypse. I logged in from my study, which I've since rebranded as my fortress of solitude. Quinn popped up in a grainy, low-res window, no ring light this time. She was sitting in what looked like small, cluttered room, not the kind of clutter you style for an Instagram background. The kind of clutter that screams, I didn't think this far ahead. She looked tired, not in the glamorous, I just got back from Bali kind of way in. The life has handed me a flaming dumpster kind of way. The designer wardrobe had vanished, replaced by a plain, slightly pilled sweater that looked like it had survived both a breakup and a dryer mishap. The fire in her eyes, gone. The defying anger, extinguished. What was left was the hollowed-out shell of someone who'd finally realized the war she declared was one she couldn't win. Her new lawyer did all the talking. There was no speech, no Hail Mary bargaining. No, Colton, we've both made mistakes. Just as simple. We accept the terms of the prenuptial agreement. That was it. No dramatic apology. No last minute emotional painting to win me back. No redemption arc. Just click. Done. She was awarded exactly what the prenup allowed, a modest short-term alimony. Just enough to live on for a year if she's careful and remembers that handbags aren't a food group. She got to keep the SUV and her personal belongings still in the climate-controlled storage unit I paid 6 months in advance for. That timer is about to run out. I'm guessing her next chapter might be titled Storage Auction the Revenge. A few weeks later, I heard from a mutual acquaintance, one of those people who always try to stay neutral, the Switzerland of our social group. She called me sounding sheepish, like a kid confessing to eating the last cookie. Colton, she said, I feel like you should know. Quinn called me. Let me guess, I said. She's on a spiritual retreat and needs help funding her soul realignment. She asked me for money, my friend replied, sighing. Not a little lot. She spun this whole story about temporary cash flow problem. It was sad. I nodded, not surprised. She declined. Right? Of course. And Colton, her parents, told her she needs to get a job. I laughed, not cruelly, just the kind of laugh that comes when the universe finally follows through on its punchline. Quinn has a business degree in theory, but a 10-year hole in her resume doesn't scream hire me. It whispers, I thought. Marriage was my career in the world. The world has moved on. The most surreal moment came last week. I was driving through a part of town I rarely visit, somewhere between nostalgia and accidental detour when I saw her. When she was walking out of a grocery store. No luxury bag, no oversized sunglasses, shielding her from the mere mortals. Just 2 overstuffed plastic bags hanging from her arms, digging into her wrists like reality finally decided to leave a mark. She didn't see me. She wasn't flanked by admirers or enveloped in a cloud of designer perfume. She just looked normal, anonymous, the glamorous, untouchable woman who once floated through cocktail parties with a champagne flute and a carefully curated aura was gone. In her place was just another person trying to get through the day, sweating through her sweater and probably praying the eggs didn't crack. And here's the part that surprised me most. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel pity. I felt nothing. No twisted sense of victory, no impulse to roll down the window and toss a smug one-liner. Just nothing. And that nothingness, it was the most liberating feeling I've ever had. It was the emotional equivalent of taking off a 10-year-old too-tight suit and realizing it had been pinching your soul the whole time. I sold a house. Too many ghosts. Too much beige. Too many memories of passive-aggressive dinners and strategic sighing. I bought a smaller place closer to the mountains. Quiet, peaceful, the kind of place where silence isn't awkward, it's earned. Gordon loves it. He has a big yard to patrol like the furry little despot he believed himself to be. There's a study with a window that looks out on the trees instead of a manicured lawn. The air smells like pine and possibility. I'm starting over, in a way. I'm rediscovering the man I was before I met her. The man who enjoyed quiet mornings, long hikes, and the simple, uncomplicated loyalty of his dog. Justice didn't come as some fiery moment of courtroom drama, no grand act of revenge, no viral mic drop moment. It came quietly, methodically. It came from simply stepping back and letting the natural consequences of her choices unfold like pressing play on a slow motion collapse. She built a life on a foundation of deceit, entitlement, and social smoke and mirrors. All I did was step out of the way and let it collapse under its own weight. I'm free, and That's a better settlement than any court could ever award. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Thanks for listening. Share your opinion in comment section and also do like and subscribe to the channel.